However, before we take forward this program, there are some important announcements to be made. First of all, I request all the participants to please mark their attendance for the session through the link that will shortly be provided in the chat box. Secondly, a humble request that please mark your attendance through the email ID through which you have registered for this STP. Yesterday, we came across several cases where they have registered for the STP through different email ID and they were filling the attendance with different email IDs. I request you to kindly use the registered email ID for any further communication. Secondly, a separate link will be provided for attendance for the second part of the session. So that means you'll be getting two links, one for the session 1 and secondly for the session 2. Next, in order to assess your understanding of the session, the assessment sheet based on MCQs will be shared by the end of the day. And it will, I repeat, the link for the assessment sheet will be shared with you by the end of the day, and it will remain open till 8 a.m. morning tomorrow. It will remain open tomorrow till 8 a.m. Also, for the benefit of all, the link of WhatsApp group on Indian Knowledge System will also be shared in the chat box shortly. Interested participants may join the same. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Deepika.
Yes, please.
Hello. Yeah. So from ILLL, I just wanted you to just announce that the recording of the yesterday's program is already there on the ILLL's website. So if any of the participants want to see the recorded presentation of the yesterday's session, so they can go through it. So and it will be there on the ILLL website for a longer duration. So every day session will be posted on the ILLL's website, and soon it will be posted on the college website also.
Yes, ma'am. I believe there were some network issues.
So I think my voice was audible to everyone.
Yes, ma'am. It's completely audible.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ma'am, can we proceed with the session?
Yes, Deepika, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Welcome, Dr. Raghavan.
Okay, thank you. So I'll begin now.
I'm sorry for interrupting you in between. Can I have a formal introduction of you, sir?
Yeah, my name is Raghavan.
So I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's perfectly fine, sir. It's an honor for us to have Dr. Raghavan as a resource person for the day. Dr. Raghavan is an assistant professor, School of Humanities, Social Science and Management at Indian Institute of Technology, Bhubaneswar. He did his graduation in electronics engineering from IIT Dhanbad. After a brief stint as a software engineer at Samsung, he shifted his area of study to philosophy. He did his PG and PhD from University of Hyderabad. His primary area of research is philosophy of language. His PhD thesis dealt with philosophical questions related to non-literal communication and was based on the Indian philosophical and poetological works. Dr. Raghavan has been teaching courses in introductory philosophy, Indian philosophy, logic, critical thinking, and Indian knowledge traditions since 2016. He is also keen on developing new ways of teaching philosophy to students, especially those who do not have the background in philosophy. Thank you so much, sir, for your kind assent to take this session. It's over to you, sir, now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction, madam. I'm grateful to the organizers for considering me for this short-term program. And I'm also grateful to Professor Mahadevan and Dr. Vinayak Rajat Bhatt, my dear former colleague, who continue to place trust in me that I can share my knowledge about whatever I have learned a little bit about the Indian knowledge traditions. Generally, it happens that first Dr. Vinayak speaks, then I speak. Today, this time it is ulta. So tomorrow onwards, Dr. Vinayak is speaking. So let us see how it goes. So this session is on knowledge, how the framework was and how it was classified. So I will begin by setting out the outcomes of these sessions. By the end of this session, these two sessions, the participants will be able to familiarize themselves with the procedural, psychological, and epistemic context in which the knowledge was produced in the Indian knowledge traditions. They will also have a rudimentary understanding of the Vaisheshika scheme of classifying the world, what their ontology was. And they will also have an introductory understanding of how the Nyaya school divided the pramanas. All of these words which you are encountering for the new time, I will explain as the talk goes on. And they will be able to apply this understanding to generate simple questions to engage their students. I am told that there are several teachers also over there. So you will have to give some questions to your students, just like I have given some questions to you. So you will have to also have to pose some questions to your students. So with this understanding, you should also be able to generate some small questions in these areas. And they will be able to compare, at least to some extent, how the pramanas overlap with contemporary research methodology or contemporary research practices. So this is the aim of these two talks. So yesterday, Professor Mahadevan must have introduced to you all that Tanjavur big temple and the Konark temple and the iron beams, etc. All the very various ways in which the Indians navigated through the problems of the world, and they have generated so much knowledge in so many areas like astronomy and mathematics, water irrigation, etc. The question then arises: how did they do this? Okay, so that is what we will try and answer in this particular session. How did the Indians produce all that knowledge in various streams? But this how is not a very simple how. It can be broken down into three subsequent how questions. The first how is, what is the procedure that they adopted in order to come up with this knowledge? So I have called that how one. Okay, then the second how is that what methods did they use? So today, so many of you are doing research, so you must be encountering qualitative method, quantitative method, ethnographic method, autoethnographic method, etc. All of these research methodologies you are learning, I'm sure. So what are the methods that the Indians used in order to generate this knowledge? That is, I am calling how to. And how three, how did we categorize this knowledge? So this knowledge is so vast, isn't it? Whatever the things that we can find out about, they are infinite objects. So how did we categorize this knowledge into manageable bits? So these are the three ways in which we will try to understand this how question. How did the Indians generate the knowledge? What procedure they adopted, what methods they adopted, how did they manage to categorize this knowledge into various manageable bits? So these are the three questions I will try to answer. So before setting out into the answer why we have about knowledge, etc., the first thing that we have to clarify is the psychological context. What I am calling here, say these are not words that you will encounter in the literature. These are the words that I am using. So what is the psychological context in which the Indians generated this knowledge? So the first thing that anyone will ask, supposing you are setting out on a knowledge seeking exercise, the first thing that they will ask is, what is the purpose of this particular exercise? So many of you might have presented some research proposals, etc. in your college. The first thing that they will ask is, why should we fund this research? So the faculty who are sitting over here, they may have submitted some project proposals and things like that. So in the project proposal, we have to write, what is the advantage of this? What research gap I am filling here, etc. We have to fill that in order for us to get the fund. If we don't do that, the people who are funding it will ask, why should I fund this? So that purpose is very, very important. So any knowledge seeking endeavor in the Indian knowledge traditions begin with this purpose or prayojana. There is a very popular saying in Sanskrit that prayojanam anutishya mandopina pravartate. So without knowing the purpose, even a fool does not act. So the purpose of any knowledge seeking endeavor must be clear. So that is why what many of the Shastra texts, what they do is that in the very first beginning itself, they set out what is the purpose of this particular Shastra. So for example, the Charaka Samhita says that the purpose of Ayurveda is Dhatu Samyam, in order to get the equilibrium in all the dhatus. That is the purpose of this Ayurveda. Jyotisha says that this is the Kala Vidhana Shastram. The purpose of this Shastra is to find out what is the right time for performing the ritual. So these are the various ways in which different Shastras set out their Prayojana. But then what is stopping us from fulfilling this prayojana? So if we already have knowledge, we can just use that knowledge in order to fulfill that prayojana, isn't it? But that is the point. We don't have. What we have is doubt. Is the knowledge that I have sufficient for me to solve this purpose? So that doubt is a very important ingredient in order for us to start seeking into something. If we don't have a doubt about anything, we will not ask the question at all. A very popular joke in the class is that at the end of the class, the teacher will ask, are there any questions? There will be complete silence, just like there is complete silence now. So then the teacher will joke, if there is complete silence, it means you have understood everything or you have understood nothing. So when there is no doubt, there cannot be any knowledge seeking inquiry. So there has to be a doubt in order for us to start seeking out that knowledge. But then what will be the end product of that process of knowledge seeking? That is called nirnaya, or conclusion. And then what will we do with it? We will add it to the theory. So we already have a bank of knowledge. No knowledge seeking endeavor happens in a vacuum. We already have some knowledge. Based on that knowledge, we start seeking further knowledge. And after the knowledge seeking endeavor is over, we add the new conclusion that we have found to the existing bank of knowledge that we have. So that existing bank of knowledge is called Siddhanta, or theory. So this sets forward the psychological context in which the Indians started to know whatever it is that they knew. Now we will come to the question, how did they seek this knowledge? What is the procedure they adopted to seek this knowledge? One of the very important things about the Indian tradition is that it was an oral culture. Most of the things that we did was through oral transaction. Now you think you can either unmute yourself and tell in chat, how is knowledge produced in an oral culture? What do you think is the most easy mechanism or the most convenient mechanism that an oral culture adopts in order to generate knowledge? In an oral culture where writing is not that much popular, what is the most easiest method for generating knowledge? If there are, yeah,
I think it is through Shruti, where you hear and then you just pass it on by speaking it.
Yeah, speaking. The first answer that you have given is that you hear it. Okay, you hear it from Shruti. Now, Shruti is it is already given to us. For those of you who don't know, the Shruti is another name for the Veda, but that is just given to us. You cannot add anything to the Veda, right? So we normal day-to-day people, we cannot add anything to the Veda. What is given to us via the Veda is given. That's it. So now, but that is not the question that we are asking here. We are asking, how can we generate new knowledge? See, the Indians generated knowledge about how to make a rustless iron, how to make the temple in which the sun comes exactly at that time. These are all new knowledge, isn't it? So how did they generate this? A part of the answer you have already told. I'm just waiting for the correct word to come, that's all.
Discussions.
Yeah, very good. So the number one tool that the Indians used was discussions or debates. So this answers the first question that we were asking. How did the Indians generate the knowledge? They used discussion. So if somebody asks the question, how did Indians generate all the knowledge that they generated? You have to say that in an oral culture, the most common procedure that was adopted was that they did it via a discussion or a debate. So one person had a hypothesis, he presented it to another person, they debated, they found out whether this is agreeing to the theory that we have or not. And if it was agreeable to the theory, that new knowledge got generated and added to the existing bank of theory. So the Nyaya tradition, it is one of the philosophies, some of you may know, there are some six or nine philosophies, very popular philosophies, that depends upon how you count it in the Indian tradition. One of them is called Nyaya Darshana, and it has made a classification of what are all the various types of debates that you can have. A similar type of discussion, classification you can find in Charaka Samhita also. So there are mainly three types of discussions. One is Vada. It is the most recommended kind of discussion in which two people set forward two hypotheses. So I have an hypothesis, you have another hypothesis. So for example, I say that God exists, you have another hypothesis saying God does not exist. Now each of us should present pramanas. So this is a new word for many of you. You may want to note it down, pramana. Each of us will provide justification for the hypothesis. So I will provide justification for my hypothesis. You will provide justification for your hypothesis. And none of the justification that we provide must be opposing to the Siddhanta that is already there. It should not oppose the existing bank of ideas that we already have. And then we both of us have to present our reasoning in a systematic format, not in a haphazard format, not shout at each other or anything like that. In a step-by-step way, we have to present that knowledge. What are those steps? We will see in the second session. We will see what those steps are. And then the ultimate aim of Vada is to arrive at the truth. It is not to say that, oh, no, I have one, etc., or you have one, etc. It is to find out the true nature of God. What is the true nature of God? Whether God exists or not. If it exists, then what is the nature of God? Is he everywhere, or is she everywhere, or did she create the world? Did he create the world? What is the true nature of God? So the aim of a Vada is to reach at truth, in which there are two opposing hypotheses, and both of them are justified using certain pramanas. So this is one kind of Vada, and it is one kind of discussion, and it is the most recommended form of discussion. But then there are two other forms of discussion also, which are also recognized. One of them is called Jalpa, in which all the previous characteristics are there. Whatever characteristics of the Vada you see over here, all of them are there in the Jalpa also. But the only difference is that you can use even rhetorical means. Rhetorical means what? You can use forceful methods. You can use a appeal to ignorance. You can use appeal to force. You can use emotional attacks, etc. You can use all of these tactics in order to convince the other person that they are wrong and we are right. And the aim here also is very different. The aim is to secure our own position. I'm not bothered about the truth and all. I just want to say, go on defending my position. You go on defending your position. Okay. So this is another kind of debate. The third kind, which is not that much recommended, but still it is useful, is a debate in which the only objective is to make you refute what you are saying. That's all. So suppose I am a Vitandavadin. I am indulging in Vitanda. Me and you are indulging in Vitanda. You will present a hypothesis. I am not going to present my hypothesis. I am only going to play the devil's advocate, what in English is called devil's advocate. I am only going to play the devil's advocate, and I am somehow going to make you contradict yourself. What is my idea about God? I don't care. I am just going to make you contradict that God does not exist, or you don't know what you are talking about. So that is the aim of the Vitanda. Though this may seem very counterproductive, the Nyaya Sutra says that it is very important, and Jalpa and Vitanda help us to guard the truth that we have attained via Vada. So whether you agree with this or not, we can discuss, but these two also have their use in current times. So this answers our first question that we have is how was knowledge produced in an oral culture? It was produced via the culture of debates and discussions. So here is a critical thinking question for you. You can note this question down. You can present it to your students in your class, and you can discuss in the class. Identify instances of Vada, Jalpa, and Vitanda in modern society. So for example, where do you find Vada in modern society? Can you tell me where some instances of Vada you find? Healthy discussions aiming at truth. Where do you find that? I'm sorry, I'm not able to see the comments. So, so you have to, yeah, discussion with others. Yeah, okay, this is the old one. So what about the answer to the new question? Where do you find Vada in day-to-day society, in modern society?
News channels.
News channels. Okay, that's a very bold thing to say. Do they have a healthy discussion aiming at truth?
Not really, but I thought that's just an example of discussions or debates.
No, I'm specifically asking about Vada. Where do you find Vada? Vada kind of discussion, where do you find? Yeah, in classroom teaching. Yes, of course.
Yes, sir. Yes. This kind of conferences we are having today, webinars, where we can discuss this whole thing regarding good aspect.
Yeah, here, legislative bodies and school educational institutes. Yes. So these are some of the areas where Vada, a healthy discussion aiming at finding the truth, happens in these kinds of places. Where does the Jalpa happen? Can you think about places where Jalpa happens? Each of us is just bothered about setting our idea. That's all. I'm not bothered about truth and all. I will establish my position, you will scream about your position, I will scream about my position, both of us will go on talking about our position. That's all. Where do you find these things in our day-to-day society?
All our political parties do that.
Politics, yes, yes. When we were in power, we did this. When we were in power, we did this, etc. In the previous example that was given, the news channel, etc. So 100 people are called on a panel. Each one starts shouting their own position. They are not at all concerned about what the other person is telling. Go on. Hamara party ye karega, hamara party wo karega. No, hamara party ye karega. So they go on talking about it like that. So yeah, that is one example of Jalpa. Where do you find Vitanda? Can you tell me some?
There is a one topic and the two group is fighting for each other. One is saying that it is good, one is saying it's bad. There is that time you can find that.
Yeah, but where do you find Vitanda? The Vitanda is a destructive argument where the position is not I am not setting out my position. I just want to show that you are wrong. That's all. Somehow I want to make you contradict yourself. Where can you think of instances where this happens? There was one famous journalist. He used to run an interview itself called Devil's Advocate. Do you remember? A child demanding something from parent is Jalpa. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, but a child does not present logical arguments. They only do emotional pressure. So that cannot be counted as a Jalpa. Jalpa is logic along with emotional pressure. So that is the difference between what you are telling.
In quotes?
Yeah, in quotes. Yeah, in quotes it is possible. So the defendant lawyer will try to prove that there is something contradictory about what the other person is telling. See, your case, there is a contradiction in what you are arguing. In the way you are arguing, there is a contradiction. Therefore, your argument must not be heard. So this is one way in which the Vitanda occurs in modern society also. Buddhist monks even practice this even today. Tibetan Buddhist monks practice this Vitanda even today as a form of test. So if you are contradicting yourself, it means that you don't understand that concept well. So Richard Feynman, a very famous physicist, had this technique. If I am able to explain something to a 6-year-old, it means that I have understood the concept. If I am not able to explain, then it means that I have not understood the concept. In the similar way, if I am able to contradict what you are telling, it means that you have not understood it properly. So in order for you to test, Karan Thapar, yes, that is the name I was searching for. He does not set forward his position. He always goes on asking questions in a way such that somehow the interviewee himself or herself traps themselves. So that was one example of Vitanda. Okay, so the other questions also you can note down. We can have discussion towards the end of the session when we have time. We can have discussion. How do you compare the tradition of debates in IKT with the modern practice of peer-reviewed publication? So peer-reviewed publication also is a form of discussion. We are having a discussion with our peers. So how it is different, how it is similar, let us discuss towards the end of the session. Do you agree with the claim that we need Jalpa and Vitanda to defend our knowledge? If not, what are the modern tools that we have to defend our knowledge claims where Vada has not worked? So Vada has not worked to convince this fellow. What are the modern tools that we have come up with if you think that Jalpa and Vitanda do not satisfy? So these critical thinking questions you can also note down. You can present them in your class. You can discuss with your students. It will be a very lively class. Okay. So let us go on. So we have clarified the psychological context. We have clarified the procedural context. Now let us see the epistemic concept. So the question that we are asking here at this point is, what are the ways in which I acquire knowledge? So this is the how-to question. How to do I acquire knowledge? And about what can I acquire knowledge? That is the how 3 question. That is, how do I classify those entities about which I have the knowledge? So this is the epistemic context under which the knowledge generation exercise was done. So in continuation with that epistemic concept, whatever knowledge you are seeking, you can divide it into the knowledge seeking endeavor. You can divide it into 3 parts. Though whatever knowledge exercise that you are doing, you can divide it into 3 parts. Firstly, there is the subject of inquiry, that is me. In Sanskrit, it is called the Pramatru. So I am the Pramatru. So if I want to find out the true nature of this water bottle, I am the Pramatru. I am the subject of inquiry. And what is the object of inquiry? This bottle. Supposing I want to find out the true nature of Atma, then I am the subject of inquiry and Atma is the object of inquiry. Supposing I want to find out the true nature of capitalist markets, then I am the subject of inquiry, capitalist markets are the object of inquiry. Supposing I want to find out the true nature of emotions, then I am the subject of inquiry and emotions are the object of inquiry. So I hope these two vertices are clear. What is the pramatra and what is the prameya? One is the subject of inquiry and the other is the object of inquiry. I'm sorry, there is a
But here
typo.
it says
Yes.
both,
Yeah, there is a
Oh, yeah,
typo,
yeah.
typo
Typo,
over
yeah.
there. The
okay,
object of
right,
inquiry.
thanks.
So the prameya is the object of inquiry. Okay, the prameya is the object of inquiry. The pramatra is the subject of inquiry. And now, so these two elements are clear. How am I going to access that object? So for example, if I am going to access, how I'm going to know about this water bottle, what are the methods that I am going to use? I'm going to use some microscope. I'm going to use some metal analysis, some chemical analysis I'm going to use. In the same way, if I'm going to explore into the nature of capitalist markets, what is the method that I'm going to use? If I'm going to explore into the nature of emotions, what is the method that I'm going to use? I will put some fMRI scanner on my head. I will take some questionnaire methodology. Person is mic is on. 1 minute. Okay, fine. It's done. Okay, so the two elements are clear. The third element is what is the means I am going to adopt. You see, the way in which I inquire into this water bottle, I cannot inquire into my emotions, right? I have to use different methods. I cannot use a microscope and put it inside my brain and find out what is the nature of my emotion. I cannot do that. No, I have to adopt different methods in order to inquire that particular thing. So the methods that I employ will depend upon the prameya or the object of inquiry. Anything that you do, any knowledge seeking inquiry that you do, you can divide it into these three vertices: the pramatra, the prameya, and the pramana. So this sets up the epistemic context in which the knowledge was produced in the Indian knowledge tradition. And two darshanas, two traditions of thought are very, very important to us in this context. There was one called the Vaisheshika Darshana. The other one is called the Nyaya Darshana. These two become the most important when it comes to understanding these two vertices. The Prameya vertex was concentrated or studied by the Vaisheshika Darshana, and the Pramana vertex was studied by the Nyaya Darshana. So this Darshana word, if it is new to many of you, it is the equivalent word in the Indian knowledge traditions for philosophy. So that is one word that we have. So when I say Vaisheshika Darshana, you can understand it as Vaisheshika philosophy. Nyaya Darshana, you can understand it as Nyaya philosophy. There are 6 schools of philosophy emerging from the Vaidika Sampradaya. 2 of them are these Vaisheshika and Nyaya Darshana. So the Nayayikas concentrated on the Pramana vertex. They tried to find out what are all the various means of inquiry that we can have, and what is the nature of those means of inquiry, what is the nature of knowledge, etc. These kinds of questions they focused on. The Vaisheshika Darshana, on the other hand, focused on what are all the various ways about which we can know something. How do we classify the world that we have into manageable parts? So in this part of the lecture, till 4 o'clock, we will see this the Prameya vertex, and then from 4:15 onwards, we will see the Pramana vertex. Is it clear? So now we will try to find out a little bit about what the Vaisheshika contribution to this knowledge seeking exercise was. Okay. Yeah. So a little bit about the Vaisheshika Darshana. It was propounded by one Maharishi called Kanada, who is supposedly lived around early part of the Common Era. And the name Vaisheshika derives from the word Vishesha, meaning an individual or a specific character. So the Vaisheshikas believed in a property called Vishesha. It's not really a property, in an entity called Vishesha, which is there in each and every atom. So because of subscribing to that theory, they got the name Vaisheshika. So that is the etymology of their school. And they came up with a framework to analyze reality, which consists of infinite entities. And in their understanding, reality is not just physical, it includes both physical as well as non-physical. So they want to understand the true nature of not only water bottles and laptops and webcams and computers, etc., but they also want to understand the nature of things like mind, emotions, atma, time, space, etc. So the notion of reality is a broader notion compared to what we understand in physics as reality. In physics, reality means the physical reality, but here reality means both physical as well as non-physical. Now here I present to you a problem. You see here, reality consists of infinite entities. I'm sure all of you will agree with this. Now here is the problem in front of the Vaisheshika. The world has infinite entities. If we have to describe them, we have to give infinite descriptions or infinite theories. How can we economize this task? So I am putting this question to you. So same question that the Vaisheshika had, I am putting to you. So the world consists of infinite entities. If I have to describe each and every entity, I have to give infinite descriptions. I cannot give infinite descriptions. So how can I manage this? How can I economize this task? Can you tell? Any ideas? How can I economize this task? I don't want to give infinite description. Do you all agree that world contains infinite entities? I'm sure there is no disagreement about that. Now I want to know about infinite entities. How is that possible? I have to give infinite descriptions. That is not possible. Yes, very good. So what I have to do is I have to classify. I have to come up with some classification. What I have to do, any other word that somebody wants to say instead of grouping? Yeah, very good. Grouping. What you need to do is that you need to group the entities into certain types or certain classes. So what you can do is that instead of giving a description of the infinite entities, you group similar entities into certain groups, and then you give the characteristic of that group. If you have given the characteristic of that group, you have described to an extent, you have described every entity in that group. Do you understand? So this is the answer to the first stage of the problem. I cannot give infinite descriptions. Therefore, what I am going to do is that I am going to categorize the world into certain sets, and I am going to describe that set. If I describe that set, every entity in that set is going to be described. So if I ask you to name what are the even numbers, if I ask you what are the even numbers, you can go on. There are two ways in which you can do. You can go on to 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. It's a never ending list. It will go on infinitely. It will go on. Simply, you can say any multiple of 2 is an even number. You see the difference between the two? In the one way, you are going on listing infinitely. In the other way, you are giving a characteristic. You are giving the nature of the set. Okay. So the Vaisheshika adopted this second strategy of classifying entities into certain sets and giving the characteristic of that set. Okay, till here it is clear. Now the problem has become, how can we classify the entities into certain finite categories? What criteria will I use in order to classify the entities into certain categories? Any answers? How will I know what are all the categories that are there in the world? What characteristics are there? How do I know? How will I identify those common characteristics? Difference. How do I know? See, commonality or difference. How do I know that? Yeah, this is different from that, etc. How do I know? Just by observation, I cannot. Oh no, observation I cannot do. No, because there are infinite entities. How can I observe infinite entities? Concept formation. Concept formation itself requires categorization. So you are jumping one step. Go. Based on some trials, based on some traits. Yeah, I cannot see. You are all saying that based on some traits, based on some characteristics. You see, there are infinite entities, therefore there are infinite characteristics. I cannot have infinite characteristics. I cannot have the idea of infinite characteristics. No, but there is something which is very close to us, based on which we can have an access to those characteristics. No, observation we cannot use. There are infinite entities. We cannot observe infinite entities. There is something which we can use as a mirror of reality. Can you find out what that is? Sorry, it's not clear. Can you take some samples? Yeah, you will take samples, okay, but based on what will you take the samples? That is the question. Something which is there, which mirrors reality. Something which we use every day. I am using right now. Take some samples, then we explore and we study the characteristics. Yes, yeah, you study their characteristics, but you cannot study the characteristics of infinite entities. So you will never be able to know that the sample that you have taken is a representative sample. You understand? One of the important requirements for a statistical analysis is that the sample that you have taken should be a representative sample. So because there are infinite entities, one thing, communication. Somebody, so 2-3 people have said communication. What is it that we use for communication? What do we use for communication?
Language.
Language. So what is the answer that the Vaisheshika gave is that observe language. For them, they made an assumption that language perfectly mirrors reality. So if we are able to classify all the words in the language, we would have classified all the entities in the world. Now, whether you agree with this approach or not is a different question. I am only telling you what the Vaisheshika has done. This itself is a very good critical thinking question for your students. Do you agree with the Vaisheshika assumption that language perfectly mirrors reality? Okay, the Vaisheshika thought so. The Vaisheshika thought that language perfectly mirrors reality. Instead of classifying all the entities in the world, let me try and classify the language that I have. If I am able to classify the language, each of the entity in that language latches on to some entity in the world. Let us say the word bottle. The word bottle latches on to this entity in the world. No? The word hair latches on to this entity in the world. The word laptop latches on to this entity in the world. In the same way, if I am able to classify all the words in a language, I will be able to come up with a classification of the world. Is this approach clear? How they came up with this methodology? So their answer to the question of how we can characterize the world is, let us observe language. Because language is a very good mirror of the reality, if we classify the various entities of language, we would be classifying the various entities in the world. So this is what they did. And they used this method, this step-by-step method that they used in order to set out their analysis. The first thing that they did is that they gave a list of all the types. So I told you that it is not possible to give the list of all infinite entities. It is better to classify them. So what they did is that they enumerated all the categories first. So that step was called Uddesha. So they enumerated all the knowables and the namables. And then they gave a definition of each and every category. So we will see in the next slide what are those categories, etc. We will see. They gave a definition of each and every category. And then, based upon some counter arguments, Vada, etc., they refined that definition in order to remove any ambiguity. So this was the strategy that they followed in order to set out their analysis. First, give an enumeration of all the categories, then give a definition of each and every category, and thirdly, try to examine and refine that definition in order to remove any anomalies or ambiguities or anything. So in Sanskrit, the name for these steps are Uddesha, Lakshana, and Parishkara. Pariksha also is another name. Parishkara is a Navinaya term. Pariksha is another name. So I think that should be a Dirgha Ikara over there, Pariksha. So Uddesha, Lakshana, and Pariksha. So by doing this, they tried to give a complete categorization of the observable world. And based on this analysis, these are all the 7 categories that they came up with. The first category that they came up with is a dravya or a substance. This bottle is a substance. Venkat Raghavan is a substance. This laptop is a substance. You are a substance. So there is whatever entities you take in this world, many of them have to be substances. If it is not a substance, it is an attribute. It is a guna. This bottle is yellow. Raghavan is brown in color. Laptop is black in color. The paneer butter masala is tasty. The lemon juice is sour. This wood is very soft. So all of these are attributes. If it is not a substance nor an attribute, perhaps it is an action. Raghavan is walking, Raghavan is running, Raghavan is jumping. All of these are actions. So all action word come under this category. But how are you able to identify that this is a bottle? How do you know that this is a bottle and not a laptop? It has something called a universal. This is called samanya. It has something called as a universal bottlehood or bottleness, based upon which you are able to identify that this is a bottle. How are you able to find out that this is a laptop? Nowadays, laptops are coming in different shapes and sizes. But how are you able to identify that all of them are laptops? Because it has some universal thing called laptophood or laptopness. In Sanskrit, we say laptoptva. We add the suffix tva. Gotva, Ghatatva, Manavatva. In local languages also you use Manavta. Tumme koi manavta hai ki nahi? Like that we say. So the manavta, that ta that is being added over there is that universal, is the indicator of that universal. But how do I know that this bottle is different from the bottle that is there in your hand? Supposing you people also have a bottle. How is this bottle different from your bottle? Because it has something called as a Vishesha or a particularity. So what is responsible for the commonness? It is the universal. What is responsible for differentiation between the common entities? It is the particularity or the Vishesha. And all of these 5 things are held together by one category called Samavaya or inherence. Can you separate out the yellow color that is there inside this bottle? Is it possible for you to separate out the yellow color and see, this is the yellow of the bottle? Is it possible for you? No, it is not possible. See, I can take this cap over here and I can unscrew it and I can separate it. You see, I have separated the cap from the bottle. In the same way, is it possible for you to separate out the yellow color that is there inside this and take it out? No, that kind of a relationship is called inherence relationship. Is it possible for me to take the softness out of this wood? No, without destroying it, that is. Is it possible? No, it is not possible. Is it possible to take the color out of me just like this and so see, this is the color of Raghavan like that? No, it is not possible. So this kind of an inseparable glue is called Samavaya. That is what holds all these former 5 categories together. And then there is another category called absence or abhava. Now, some of you might have a doubt why this new category called abhava or absence is required. If we take an example, it will be clear to you. But are the categories clear? I request you all to please take a note of these terms. One is dravya, the other is called guna or attribute. The third one is karma or action. The fourth one is samanya, which is universal. The fifth one is vishesha or particularity. And the last one, samavaya. These are all the bhava padarthas or existent categories. And then we have another category called abhava or absence. I hope you have all taken some note somewhere.
Dr. Raghavan,
Yeah.
just make a little request if we can go just slightly slower.
Yeah, sure. Wherever it's a problem, please stop. This is a perpetual complaint I have been having. So I don't know.
You know too much. That's the only problem, I guess.
No, sorry. Yeah, okay. Just make a note of this. We will come back to, yeah.
Dr. Raghavan, just one query, clarification.
Yeah.
This approach, all these categories are applicable to both animate and inanimate?
Animate, anything, animate, inanimate, both.
Human beings also.
Yeah. See, what was their definition of reality? I showed here. What was their understanding of reality? Physical plus non-physical. I have to describe reality completely, not just a human reality.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So just make a note of these categories. I hope you have made a note.
Sir, can you please again tell about this absence? Abhava.
I will tell. You
Yes,
first
please.
make a note. When we go to the next slide, I think it will be clear.
Okay, thank you.
But for now, just make a note of the 7 categories. Dravya, guna, karma, samanya, vishesha, samavaya, and abhava. So these are the various categories. Okay. So now what I told you, the Vaisheshika had come up with this answer by analyzing our language. So let us do that only. Okay. Let us take one simple sentence. I have taken one simple sentence over here. Okay. If the Vaisheshika answer or Vaisheshika methodology is correct, then all of the words that are there in this must come under one of the 7 categories. Yes or no? So let us now try and see. So first thing, dravya. Do you identify a substance in this sentence? Is there a substance in this?
Yes.
What
cow.
is the substance? Cow. Yes,
Cow.
Exactly. The cow is the substance. It is it is a substance. That's all. What it is, the details and all are not important for. Yes, it is a substance. Why it is a substance? Because it has certain properties. Are you able to find out any properties in this particular sentence? Are you able to see any properties?
Brown.
Brown. Brown is a property. So it is a guna. Right? What about other words? What about walks? What term is that? What is that? Out of the
Karma.
Karma.
Walks will be karma.
Action.
Yes, it is an action term. So it comes under the ontological category called karma. What
Yeah.
about here? What about here?
Particularity?
No. Yeah. So
No.
here you see, what does the word here indicate in this particular sentence? What
Place?
is here? Space. Space is one of the dravyas. According to the Vaisheshika categorization, space and time also are dravyas because there are so many events happening in space and time. Okay. So that is why they are also counted under the category called dravya. Whether you agree with this or not, that's a different question. But they characterized the manas, atma, dik, kala, all of these are coming under the category called dravya for the Vaisheshikas. Okay, but now how are you able to identify that that thing is a cow and not a buffalo? How are you able to do that? It is not a donkey. It is not a human being. It is a cow. How are you able to identify it?
Yes.
It is because of the category called samanya. Okay, there is something called as cow. Whether it is a brown color cow or green color cow or white color cow or black color cow, whatever it is, you will be able to identify a cow from a non-cow, isn't it? That is because every cow has something called as a cow universal or a cow hood or gotwa inside that particular thing. But you will not confuse a brown cow for a green cow, isn't it? Or a, not a green cow, like say a white cow. That is because it has something called as a particularity. So one cow is different from another cow. Though both are cows, it is different from each other because it has one cow, each cow has a particularity in it. That is why you are able to distinguish one human being from another human being, hopefully. Yes. So both of us have the quality called manavatva, that both of us have. That is the universal of humanness. But Raghavan is different from, let us say, who is this? Anil Kumar. Why that is the case? Because the Vishesha in Anil Kumar is different from the Vishesha in the atoms of Raghavan. Okay, and what holds all of these together? The thing called samavaya, the glue called samavaya, inherence. So you cannot separate out the cowness from the cow. It is locked in a very inseparable relation. Like how I unscrewed the cap from this bottle, you cannot remove the cowness from the cow. Okay, all of this we have done. But what about this word no? What is that doing over there? What shall we do with that word now? This is the reason why they had proposed that there has to be a separate category called abhava. Is it clear? For them, for the Vaisheshika, every word in a language has to latch on to something in reality. Mujhe nahi chahiye, supposing in Hindi, let us say, ye mujhe nahi chahiye, like that word nahi has to latch on to something. That category is called abhava. That is why they proposed this category called abhava. Is it clear why this category called abhava was there? There is no hippopotamus in this room. Supposing I say, there is no hippopotamus in this room. Hopefully in your room also there is no hippopotamus. You know what hippopotamus is. It is a dravya. Then what about no? No also has to be latching on to some entity, isn't it? You cannot have a word in language which is simply dangling like that without pointing to entity in the world. Remember, language is the mirror of reality. For the Vaisheshika, language is the mirror of reality. It cannot have entity. If it is not there in reality, it cannot be there in the mirror. Can it happen? In a mirror, what is not there in front of the mirror, can it be there in the mirror? No, it cannot be there. So if it is there in the mirror, it has to be there in the reality also. So in the mirror, there are words like no, nahi, na, etc. Then there has to be an entity corresponding to that no outside in the world also. Is it clear? Any questions anyone has? Or how it is clear how they have come up with and how you can demonstrate to your students how the 7 categories are there in day-to-day sentences. So I have also taken a practice questions. You can formulate practice questions like this to your students. Classify each of the words in the following sentence using Vaisheshika categorization. So this is just a practice problem. We are not going to do this. I am telling you that you can formulate the same kind of questions in your classroom and give it to the students so that it does not seem all theoretical. Oh, this is all theory. You can do some problems also. The students will be more interested when they are able to see the application of the Vaisheshika categories. You can take a screenshot if you are whatever electronic device you are watching. You can please take a screenshot and you can formulate any sentence. All sentences that are coming out of my mouth should be classifiable based upon the Vaisheshika scheme. There is no exception at all. Okay, so you can formulate your own examples for this. Okay, so this is another critical thinking question you can take for your students. Do you think that the Vaisheshika categories are exhaustive, or do you think that they exclude some entity in the world? Give reasons for your answer. Exhaustive means what? Whatever entities that are there in this world are there in one of these 7 categories. Do you agree with that? We can discuss it when at the end of the discussion, end of the session, when we have some time for discussion, we can take it up. But initially, if we have some comments, I can take it. What are your first impressions? Do you think that these 7 categories are exhaustive? Do you think that there are some entities that are left out? No, this thing is not there in this one. What about God? Where will we put God? In which of the 7 categories will we put God? Okay, so any one of the 7 categories you have to put it. So you think about it, where you will put it. For example, where will you put emotions? Emotions are also there. See how we understood reality as being both physical as well as non-physical, no? So where will you put emotions? Where will you put things like religious institutions, dharma, adharma, etc., morality, etc.? Where will you put all those things? So you can think about that. So what about the new discovered things? Day to day, black hole, something and all is being discovered every day. New things are being discovered. Where will you put? Which category will you put? You can ask. Do we need
vacuum. Sir, vacuum.
Vacuum. So what is vacuum? Can you define vacuum?
No,
Very good example.
Yes, sir. So actually, scientifically, it would be a place where there is no air, nothing exists there.
Then you already have a category for that.
Okay.
Space. Abhava is there. Abhava is there.
Okay. Thank you.
Space is a dravya. It is already counted under the dravya. In the next slide, I will show you. Space is already a dravya. It is there. Kala also is a dravya. So you can think about this. It's not. This is you need not end the discussion here. You can take this question, take it to your classroom, discuss it with your friends, whatever it is. Do you think that because there are several traditions which don't think agree with this? So when I am presenting this categorization, it doesn't mean that all Indian thinkers agreed with this categorization. No, there was another categorization given by Mimamsakas. There was another school of philosophy called Mimamsa. They gave their own categorization. They felt that this categorization was not sufficient. Okay, so you see, these are not testable in a lab. All these things are not testable in a lab. Only by avada, only by argumentation, we have to prove our categories are complete or not. Okay, so you also please think about it. So let us take a few more details about each of these categories. I won't go into all of them because it gets somewhat very philosophical. I will stick to only the first 3, Dravya, Guna and Karma, because in the textbook also these are only given, and many things can be solved just with these 3 things, or what we encounter in our visible reality. These 3 categories are sufficient. So dravya or substance is the building block of all reality. It is the substratum of all other padarthas. So this bottle is a dravya. It is the substratum of so many things. It is the substratum of this shape. This particular shape is inherent in that particular substance. It is the substratum of the color. It is substratum for hardness. It is substratum of all these properties. So a dravya is required to be the substratum of so many properties. And all the other padarthas, especially this karma, guna, etc., inhere in the dravya. Please note what I said. Inherence is a very, very special relationship. It is not like this bottle, I can remove the cap. It is not a separable relation. It is an inseparable relationship. And this notion of substance is much broader than the modern notion of substance, because it includes things like atma also. So here you can see the 9 things that have been identified as substances. The first one, Prithvi, Ap, Teja, Vayu. These are the various entities that make up the corporeal world, the world that we see outside. And then there is Akasha, then Dik, which is space, and Kala, time, Manas, mind also is treated as a dravya. And then finally, Atma. So I had asked you one question, no? What is this God? Where you will put God? If your definition of God is that God is a special kind of Atma, then you can put it over here. No need to make a separate category for God. God can be put under this category called Atma. So all of us have Atma, or supposedly it is, if you believe in such things. So you can put it in this category. So I have put a star mark over these 5 things. If you see here, earth, water, fire, air, and mind. I have put a star over them because these 5 things are atomic in nature. Okay, Akasha is only one. There is only one Akasha. It is pervading everywhere. Similarly, there is only one space. Space pervades everywhere. Similarly, there is time. Time pervades everywhere. We make classification, saying tomorrow, yesterday, like that. We make classification, but that is only for our conventional use. For our day-to-day life to be possible, we make such classifications. Otherwise, time is only one. And similarly, Atma, though there are many, it is not counted as being atomic in nature. Only these 5 things are atomic: earth, water, fire, air, and the mind. And they are infinite in nature. And these are atomic in nature. This is another very important contribution made by the Vaisheshikas, their theory of atoms. So you must have heard in our, when I was studying in school also, this was there, one box was drawn. Indians had the theory of Paramanu. It was there in our thinking, etc. It was told. But this idea of Paramanu or Anu is very different from the modern conception of atom. I will tell you why. So this Anu or atom is the smallest entity from which all objects are made. It is the logical extreme of breaking entities. So this is a composite entity. This bottle is a composite entity. If I break it down, I will get some parts of the bottle. If I break it further, I will get smaller and smaller parts. If I go on breaking it, I will get nanoparticles of this particular bottle. If I break it even further, I will get what the Vaisheshika called the Anu or the Paramanu. Further than that, we cannot go. Today, modern day atom, can it be broken further? Can the modern day atom, can it be broken further into smaller parts? Does anyone know?
Yes.
Yes, we can break it down into protons,
Protons,
neutrons. We can go down. But the Vaisheshika atom or Anu cannot be broken down further. So there is a very important distinction between Anu of the Vaisheshika and the modern day chemistry or physics atom that we are taught. And the other important distinction is that the Anu is never perceived. Nobody perceives the Paramanu. Nobody observes the Paramanu. It is only inferred. We have to infer as a logical argument, because if I go on breaking this bottle, the logical end point will be that there will come a particle. I cannot break it down any further. So that logical end point is called the Paramanu. So we can only infer the existence of the Paramanu. We cannot observe them directly. This is also a very distinct difference between the modern conception of atom and the Vaisheshika Paramanu. You can observe the modern atom with some electron microscope or something like that. You can see atoms, or it is at least perceivable in some ways, whereas the Paramanu is not perceivable. The other important point is that they are innumerable and they are distinct. Each Paramanu is distinct from another Paramanu. Okay, there are infinite atoms. In modern day also we say there are infinite atoms and they are distinct. But this is a very modern atoms are not like that. If you take one iron atom, it will be same as another iron atom. If you take one hydrogen atom, it will be same as another hydrogen atom. The physicists don't see any distinction between one atom and another atom. Whereas the Vaisheshika, you remember why we call them Vaisheshika? Because of having that thing called Vishesha. It is because of that Vishesha is that each atom is distinct from different. Though all the atoms have come together to form this bottle, still they are distinct from each other. I told you that in this Prithvi, Ap, Teja, Vayu, these are all atomic. Yes, they are all atomic, correct. But one Prithvi Anu is different from another Prithvi Anu. One Up Anu is different from another water Anu. One Teja Anu is different from another Teja Anu. So this is another very important distinction between the modern conception of atom and the Vaisheshika conception of Paramanu. And they were all set into motion by an unseeable force called Adrishta. Some people say God, etc., whatever it is, but the general term that we encounter in some of the literature is Adrishta. The Adrishta is some unseeable force. It set the Paramanus into motion in the beginning of the creation. And when the next creation happens, again the Adrishta will set forward the atoms in a different way. So that is how all the Anus have motion and they do produce all the composite things that you see around you. They produce it based upon this Adrishya Shakti. And they combine in a very systematic way to form all the composite entities that we have. So one and two Anus come together to form a Dvayanuka or a dyad. Okay, so that is called a Dvayanuka. So one atom, another atom come together to form a Dvayanuka or a dyad. Three such dyads come together to form a Trianuka. And this Trianuka is the least perceptible entity in the world. So now we are going atom, proton, neutron, like that we are going. No? For the Vaisheshika, the smallest perceivable entity is this Trianuka. Four such Trianukas combine to form a quadratic, or whatever it is the name for that. There is no word in the literature for that. But four such things come together to form like that. So in a systematic way, they form. It's not the case that all the atoms simply come together and form this bottle. It's not like that. One atom and another atom come together, they form a dyad. Three such dyads come together to form a Trianuka. Four such things come together to form a quad. Five such things come together to form the pentagon, etc., whatever it is, and they go on forming the composite entity that is there in front of you. So this is some details about the dravyas. A few more details about the gunas. The gunas exist, or attributes exist inside the substance. They cannot exist independently. They are real, but they cannot exist independently. Some of the attributes are there only in certain substances. For example, sneha or lucidity is there only in water. Sound is there only in akasha, etc. So this akasha is different from what we are calling today sky. Okay, please do not confuse with that. Akash mein panchi ud rahe hain. That akasha is not this akasha. It is a different thing, and it is supposedly sound exists only in that entity called akasha. And some of the dravyas have some unique property. So earth has the unique property called smell. Water has the unique property called taste. Fire has the unique property called color, and air has the unique property called touch. And akasha anyway has that unique property called sound. So whatever in this world you are able to see with a form, if it has a form, for example, or it has a color, for example, there is an element of teja. Teja Paramanus are there in this. If anything in this world has a smell, it is because there are Prithvi Paramanus in that. If anything in this world has a taste, it is because there are Up or Jala Paramanus in that. If anything in this world you are able to touch, you are able to feel by the tactile perception, it is because there are Vayu Paramanus in that. Right? So all the entities that you find in the visible world over here are a combination of these four: earth, water, fire, and air. Right? And some other properties are there which are common to all the things. They exist both in the atomic entities rather than and also in the non-atomic entities. A total of 24 categories, 24 attributes have been given. This is the list. I'm just giving it to you over here. It is given in the textbook also. So some of them, the first list, in those that are presented in the red color, they are present only in the finite substances. Finite substances means earth, water, fire, air, and manas. So these are present only in that. And then you see the second bullet point. This is a very interesting list. Cognition, pleasure, pain, desire, aversion, volition, merit, demerit, they exist only in Atma. So I was asking a previous question, no, where you will put emotion. See, emotion is taken as a quality. A quality of what? Of Atman. So in modern psychology, all of these things are there in the brain or in the mind. But according to the Vaisheshika ontology, all of these things are properties of the Atma. Where is knowledge? According to modern psychology, knowledge is there in our brain. No, according to Vaisheshika, knowledge is a property of the Atman. And as soon as the Atman goes away from the body, all this cognition, definition also goes away. Okay, the sound is existing only in Akasha, whereas the rest of it exists in all the substances. So these are some more details about the ontological category called guna. So interesting point that I want you to note, a very interesting distinction, is that according to the Vaisheshika, all the feelings, all knowledge, all cognition that we have are properties of the Atma. They are not there in our mind, they are not there in the brain, etc. They are there as properties of Atma. So this is a very interesting distinction. We can take it for discussion in your class also. You can present it for discussion. And the third category which I wanted to discuss was karma, or action. And this occurs only in the finite substances, which is earth, water, fire, air, and the mind. And they have given a very brief classification of action also. They have subdivided them, just like they had divided dravya into 9 further dravyas, attributes into 24 different attributes. Action also they have divided into 5 different attributes, 5 different kinds of action: upward motion, downward motion, contraction, expansion, and any other kind of motion. Okay, general motion like rotation, etc. they have put. So any action in this world can be described as a combination of any one of these things. So if something is moving in a diagonal direction, it is a combination of upward as well as downward. You can call it like that. Okay, so when sound waves contract and expand like that, you can understand it from the Vaisheshika idea of contraction and expansion. So all motion, more or less, you can try and describe using these 5, according to them at least. So if your student disagrees with you, you can ask them, what other kind of motion do you think are there? If they say circular motion, etc., that comes under the last category, motion, gamanam. It comes under all other kinds of, you can put it in that category. And another important point that we have to note is that the Vaisheshika have proposed different causes for different kinds of action. So, for example, gravity is one of the translation of the term I have put over here, Gurutva. In Hindi, if there are any Hindi medium students or Telugu medium students over here, they will know gravity in our native language, it is called Gurutwakarshan. Gurutwakarshan it is called. So that word Gurutwakarshan, we can trace it to the Vaisheshika ontology over here. Heaviness. Okay, heaviness is a cause for motion according to Vaisheshika. Similarly, volition. Supposing this bottle is there, if I throw this bottle like this, I have caused a movement in this bottle. That is called volition. Conjunction. So, for example, if I drop this bottle over here, it will produce a dent in the table. So it is because of the conjunction between the bottle and the table. Fluidity, water flows because of fluidity, and impact, etc. This same example that I have taken, you can take for impact also. And then impulse, that I provide to my thoughts, etc. That also comes under impulse. And then adrishta, which is responsible for setting the atoms in motion, if you remember. So now here your students might ask you a question, what is this? This is not correct. So different forces, different action, what this is not correct, like that. You can tell them that in modern physics also, this is the case. In modern physics, there are 4 types of forces. Does anyone know in the audience? What are the 4 different types of forces? According to physics, what are the 4 different types of forces? What are the 4 different types of forces? Anyone knows? Any science students in the audience? So in modern physics also, there are 4 types of forces: gravitational forces, electromagnetic forces, strong nuclear forces,
mechanical.
No, not mechanical, etc. The gravitational force, electromagnetic force, strong nuclear force, and weak nuclear force. So these are the 4 types of forces, and they are responsible for different kinds of action, different kinds of motion. So this idea of different forces being there for different types of action is not alien to modern physics also. They are also trying to unify all of these forces, but here, like, that attempt was not there. But they also proposed different forces for different types of motion. I would just like to point out this uniqueness about this Gurutva over here. Look at this one sutra that is there in the Vaisheshika Sutra. When there is no particular molecular movement or impulse, there is no upward motion or sideward motion. You are able to see this law written over here. When there is no particular molecular movement or impulse, there is no upward motion or sideward motion. Does it resemble any law that you have studied in your school? Does it sound familiar with any law that you found? Any of you knows? Huh? Any of you know the Newton's laws? Newton's first law?
Second or third?
First. Newton's first law. Newton's first law states that when a body at rest will continue to remain at rest, and a body in motion will continue to remain in motion unless acted upon by an external force. So here you can see a part of that, a rudimentary form of that you can see over here. When there is no particular molecular movement or impulse, there is no upward motion or sideward motion. So in other words, unless there is some kind of a force given, there is no motion at all. So in a rudimentary way, you can see a formulation of the first law. Here is another thing about gravity. Upward motion is caused by a combination of effort and gurutva. Upward motion means what? The bottle is there. I have thrown it up. So it is a combination of effort. Effort I have put into this bottle to throw it up, and weight. Okay. If I had thrown a feather, the feather would not have traveled as up for the same effort that I have put. It is because of gurutva. This thing has more gurutva than a feather. So the feather will not travel so much up. Of course, in vacuum, it will travel the same height maybe. But here, it will travel different heights because of gurutva. Look at this second. In the absence of conjunction, objects fall due to gurutva. So it is recognized that gurutva or gravity or mass or heaviness can be the cause for downward motion. In the absence of some impetus, objects fall because of gravity. So it is recognized phenomena that gravity or mass can be the reason for movement up or down in any one of the directions. So these are some of the interesting things that you can present to the class to tell them how close it has come to modern findings. Just for some extra information, if some of you are teaching science students, you can present these kinds of information to the students. They will be a little more interested. Yeah. So just to recap what we have done till now, the question that we set out to answer was about what can I acquire knowledge, or in other words, how can I classify those entities about which I have acquired knowledge? The answer is that I can acquire knowledge about everything that is nameable and knowable, and everything that is nameable is knowable, and I can classify all the entities that I know into any of these 7 categories. Whatever I know in this world has to be a dravya, it has to be a guna, or a karma, or a samanya, or a vishesha, or a samavaya, or abhava. Whatever I know has to be put under any one of these types. So it doesn't matter that I have infinite entities in the world. I don't have to be bogged down by the fact that there are infinite entities or infinite knowledge, etc. Whatever it is, it will belong to any one of these 7 categories. Is it clear? So this one vertex we have covered over here. So we now have some 15 minutes. Any questions are there? I know I went fast, some of you told that. So now it gives me some chance to recap, or something was unclear, I can clarify. Any questions you have, or any of the critical thinking questions you want to take up, we can take up.
Would you please show that relationship between the 3 things, the sentence that you had shown?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. What is this Samana, universal?
Universal. So see, you are able to, this is a bottle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen this bottle before in your life?
Yes.
This bottle have you seen before? Oh, who are you, madam? Have I met you sometime? I don't know.
No, bottle. I am not able to see bottle. I think we are able to just see this slide, no screen. I am not able to see the bottle that you are showing.
Oh, acha. Oh, okay. Maybe others are able to see. I hope so. Okay. Anyway, have you met me in your life anytime? Have you met me?
No.
No, you have not met me. Are you sure that a human being is talking?
Yes.
How do you know that a human being is talking?
Because yeah, I've heard so many people talking. Yeah.
Yes, it's because I have some quality called samanya, some universal called samanya, manavata in me. That is why you are able to recognize that the other person also is a human being. Okay.
Sorry, my question was about this samavaya, inherence.
Sorry, samavaya. Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. So samavaya is the, in technical terms, it is the ontological glue that holds all of these things together. So for example, as I said, this bottle cap, I can remove from this bottle, and this cap, I can separate out like this. Oh shit, you are not able to see my screen. No. Okay, so a bottle cap you can remove from the bottle, isn't it? So it is separable. So for example, you are sitting on your seat now, isn't it? You can get up and leave, isn't it? So the relationship between you and your seat is a separable relationship. Whereas samavaya is an inseparable relationship. Okay, the color of your body and your body is an inseparable relationship. Okay, the hardness that is there in the table and the table is an inseparable relationship. The taste that is there inside the paneer butter masala and the paneer butter masala is an inseparable relationship. You cannot present paneer butter masala, this is paneer butter masala, this is the taste of paneer butter masala. You cannot present like that. If you want, you can present, this is paneer, this is the gravy, you mix together, you will get paneer butter. You can tell like that. That is a separable relation. You can separate out the paneer pieces from paneer butter masala, but you cannot separate out the taste of paneer from the paneer. And you can, this is the paneer, this is the taste of paneer, you please put this together and eat like that, you cannot say. So that kind of an inseparable relation is called samavaya. It deserves a special mention because it cannot be subsumed under any of the other categories. Yeah. So because madam has pointed out, I will show you over here. See, in these 24 categories, you have this one called conjunction. You are you able to see this quality called conjunction? Conjunction in Sanskrit is sanyoga. So the relationship between you and the chair that you are sitting is a conjunction. It is a sanyoga. The relationship between the paneer and the gravy is the sanyoga. There is a sanyoga between the gravy and the paneer. That sanyoga is separable. You can separate it out. Whereas samavaya, you cannot separate it out. That is why it cannot be put under the category called guna. It cannot be put under the attributes. It has to count as a separate category.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any other question about any of the other critical thinking questions I had presented? So how is the Vada Sampradaya that we have? I had presented this question over here. How do you compare the tradition of debates in Indian knowledge traditions to the modern practice of conference, seminars, and peer-reviewed publication? What do you see the similarities? What are the dissimilarities that you see? Are you able to recognize that peer-reviewed publication is a modern way of doing Vada? You are sending your paper to some journal. They are discussing. They are sending back their comments. You are responding to those comments. They are accepting or they not accepting your paper. What similarities, dissimilarities you see? Any dissimilarity that you see over here with the modern practice of publications, seminars, etc.?
It is a way of.
It is a way of what?
Correspondence.
It is a way of correspondence. So a discussion also is a way of correspondence, isn't it? So you are pointing out a similarity. I'm asking, is there any difference? Oh, sorry, I don't know if any comments are coming. Okay.
So in debate, you can have contradictions more. In discussions, so much contradiction might not be there.
Okay. So the translation of the word katha, both the discussion
maybe
and debate.
Oral and written. Maybe
oral and written. Yeah, see, that is a very important distinction. The culture itself has changed. You see, earlier we used to be an oral culture. Now we ourselves, like that we are telling. Okay, we ourselves have become a written civilization. Writing mein nahi hai to kuch bhi accept nahi karenge. Like that, we ourselves have become a written culture. So that distinction is always there. But as far as the purpose is concerned, or as far as the other features are concerned, do you see any difference? What about the third question? That do you agree that Jalpa and Vitanda are required? Do you think that you have to practice this Jalpa and Vitanda? Yeah, to some extent, these TV debates are useful. To some extent, these parliamentary debates are useful. They are needed, not just for entertainment purpose. Or do you think that do we have any modern tools for defending our knowledge claims? You have tried to do Vada with that fellow. That fellow is not at all agreeing. So what do you do?
We can give some evidence.
Yeah, all those evidence, etc. comes under this Vada. So for example, you see over here. So each of us is supported by evidence. So when Vada happens, the evidence is given. That fellow is not believing, that's all. He doesn't want to participate in that. He's going on saying, India is a backward country, it is an underdeveloped country, you people still are going outside toilet, you people are using roads and all. Go on telling, no matter how much of evidence you present to that fellow is going on telling. So you resort to Jalpa, you resort to Vitanda.
Yes, when something is against dignified life or basic human rights, then we have to go for Jalpa or Vitanda.
Okay. So I mean, so don't get misled by the example that I have taken. It can be about something like God also. So supposing you are discussing with somebody about existence of God, you don't believe in God, and your friend believes in God. You are trying to give argument after argument very patiently. You are giving argument why you should not believe in God, why you should not believe in God. That fellow does not want to agree at all. Hey, narak mein jaake maroge tum, like that goes on telling like that. With that kind of a fellow, what you will do? After a point, you will resort to Jalpa and Vitanda only. Okay, I rather live a life like this and go to Naraka than live a life like you and go to Swarga. Oh, happy, tumhara Swarga tumko hi mubarak ho. Like that, you will also resort to some rhetorical tricks. He will use some rhetorical tricks. You will also use some rhetorical tricks. Okay, but is there any other way out of this? Either you have to go away silently. You have to say, "Chalo bhai, theek hai, ho gaya, tumse aur zyada baat nahi hoga," or you have to result in this Jalpa or Vitanda.
I think in modern times, we cannot deny the fact that we have to do a little bit of our own marketing. We have to blow our own trumpet.
Yes.
Yeah,
correct,
so
correct.
VAD is not enough. I mean, it's probably the right way, but we have to prepare a world where with Jalpa and Vitanda, and then get back to VAD when the world is ready to listen.
Correct. So when Vada does not work, you have to have training in Jalpa and Vitanda in order to protect what you think is right. Okay, so you are firm in your belief. It can be about anything. It can be about investing in a stock. It can be about the nature of our country. It can be about some moral issue, whatever it is. It can be about very high level thing, or it can be a very mundane thing also. Let it be about going on a holiday to Kulu Manali, whatever it is. After a point, if your conviction, you are not able to convince the other fellow, you must be ready to do Jalpa and Vitanda to fight for what you think is right. So if in modern times, if you have some other words for this, etc., or any other methods you have, you can let us share with the class. Okay, so what about the other concepts? Is the steps clear? How they set out their categories, and then they gave the definition of each of the category, and then they tried to refine the definition in order to remove any ambiguity that they have. So this was the steps that they followed. So these are the various categories that they came up with. Anything that you know in this world, it has to be about any one of these different 7 categories. Tomorrow, if I find out, yeah.
Dr. Raghavan, I actually missed one of your slides, which talks about the how to, the detail of the how to. Could you actually just go back to it for a minute?
Yeah. So we have not yet come to that. So how to is, how do I acquire this knowledge? What are the various methods in which I can acquire this knowledge? So in modern terminology, we have different research methodologies, no? Ethnographic research, qualitative research, quantitative research, all these things we have. What did the pre-modern Indians use? What are the methods that they used? We have not yet come to that. From 415.
I'm talking about, so you discuss in detail about this how to. There's a slide of how to, like number 2.
It's this one. This is the only other place.
Okay, can you just move ahead a little?
Okay.
Okay, now I have lost track of which slide I missed. So that's
okay. So till now we have provided answers for this how 3. So this question, thank you for reminding me. So till now we have provided answers for this how 1 and how 3. So the answer for how 1 is, what procedure did we use? We used the procedure called Katha or Vada, Jalpa, Vitanda. That is the procedure that we used in order to generate knowledge. All knowledge was generated in this the Vada Sampradaya using the discussion, the tradition of discussion. It was generated. How did we characterize that knowledge or categorize that knowledge? About what did we find out? We found out things about dravyas, about gunas, about karmas, about samanyas, about visheshas, about samavayas, and about abhava. So this till now we have answered the question how 1 and how 3. The next session is going to be about how 2. What are the methods that we used?
Dr. Raghavan, I have a question. Just occurred to me.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you were talking about earlier is basically one of the major points of Bhartrihari's Vakya Padya.
Yes.
That language cuts forms in the ocean of reality.
Okay.
So I had a question. See, if I see a kind of a new animal and it still doesn't have a name, I'll give it a name for me to for it to become a real object for my friends who have not seen it.
Yes.
But what about that interstitial period, that period of time where I spot it and the time till which I do not give it a name? Is it reality or not?
Yes, it is reality. You must accept that it is reality. The mirror called language is capable of reflecting whatever is shown to it. Okay, till now that animal was not shown to it. That's all.
Okay.
Once the mirror, see, a mirror is only this much, isn't it? Some hand pocket mirror, you people, maybe some of you may be having, or in your house, in your bathroom, that mirror that is there. Only it has a limited size. In front of that, only limited reality can be put. But if that mirror is taken somewhere else, some other reality is reflected on it. So for the first time, that new animal has been reflected on that mirror. It will get a name. That is how we coin new words. Okay?
Yeah, neologisms. Yes, I was coming to that.
That is how we coin new words. It is not that the language already. In fact, for Bhartrihari, all the words that are coming out of my mouth are actually all fictitious words. Okay, they don't actually exist. What exists is that Akhanda Brahma Spota. That is the only thing that exists. That is the only reality.
Yeah.
What I am talking in English, that English language was not existing 20,000 years ago. It may not exist 40,000 years from now. But the spota or the Akhanda Vakya spota, that will exist. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So all of you who are faculty who are trying to teach this course, you can note these critical thinking questions. You can also formulate these critical thinking questions to discuss in the class. You can give these problem solving kind of things also in the class. So for example, this what I have given over here in this slide. So each of these are day-to-day sentences that we use in our day-to-day life. So all the words in this slide should be put, you should be able to put in any one of the 7 categories. Okay, so you can test their understanding and application by giving them these problem solving kind of a questions. It need not be always theory. It will get very boring. So they will think that this is all theory, there is no application at all, like that. They may have the misconception, but no, as I told you, without the purpose, no knowledge seeking endeavor was done in the Indian climate. So there is a practical purpose for all the knowledge that was created. So you should be able to implement to some extent that the concepts that they proposed. So you can also formulate. There's nothing fantastic about the sentence that I have just randomly written. Whatever sentences came to my mind, I wrote, because I am confident that the approach of Vaisheshika is a very good approach. It may not be foolproof, but it is a very good approach. All the words in our language can map onto any one of the 7 categories. Here I have taken English language. If you take our Indian languages, you will find it even more easy. Because Vaisheshika theories, most of them, they used Sanskrit language, and since Sanskrit is close to many of the Indian languages, if you use the Indian languages, you will see that the classification becomes more and more easy. Yeah.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yes, yes.
So according to the Vaisheshika approach, reality is fixed.
Yes, reality is there.
It
yeah,
is fixed.
Fixed
So
means
that
I don't know what it is. Means it is out there.
It is like it is given.
Yes,
it's given.
Yeah, it's
so,
given.
So then, what happens to the constantly evolving nature of things? You know, how does that get taken into consideration? Because everything is in a state of flux. You know, evolving, growing.
Yeah.
So how does that get taken into it?
Yeah, so we have, I explained to you this one concept called Adrishta. Do you remember? There was one thing called Adrishta, which sets the atoms into motion. So in this category, yeah, set in motion by Adrishta. So this Adrishta will take care of all the change that is there in the world. So it is responsible for all the change. So one day this bottle came into existence, isn't it? It was not there from 2000 years ago. This bottle was not there.
Yeah.
Some person created it. Okay, that person created it by moving the atoms and by whatever processes that they made. The atoms were put together with this unseen force, with the human effort. That's why I asked, when you said fixed, do you mean that it is unchanging? No, that is not their idea of reality. Reality is there irrespective of whether you know it or not. I have never seen a duckbill platypus in my life, but I know that it is there out there in the world. Okay, but it is changing. So this theory that the world is out there, it is a given, is not contradictory to the fact that it can change. It can change because of the forces like Adrishta. It can change because of the human intervention, because of karma, etc. It can change.
And sir, when you opened the lecture, you talked about Shruti.
Shruti, yeah.
Yeah. So you again, I'm just clarifying my doubts here.
Yeah.
Shruti is like that you have to listen to it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that means that you cannot like if you argue and if you question it,
yeah,
there can be any change in it. That is not a possibility there, right?
You can question it. You can definitely ask questions about Shruti. For example, the Mimamsaka philosophers have tried to give a lot of rules of interpreting the Shruti, how you should understand the Shruti. But you cannot, I mean, at least according to the traditional belief, you cannot say that after the questioning, you cannot say that, no, it's not acceptable, this is false. Like that, you cannot tell. You can ask doubts.
Ask doubt and remain with doubts.
Yeah.
Remain with doubts. Okay.
Sorry, what? Remind.
No, I'm saying that you can ask doubts, but if one is not able to find an answer there.
You can search for new answers. Nobody is opposed to getting new knowledge. But don't say that the knowledge that is written in the Veda is false. That is all a traditionalist would say. I am not telling like that. The traditional person will say like that. It's possible that there are so many things that are not there in the Veda. For example, quantum entanglement is not there in the Veda. The nature of capitalist markets is not there in the Veda. So nobody is telling that Veda has everything in it. All that the traditional person will tell is that whatever is there in the Veda, don't tell it is false.
Okay.
That's
yes, sir. But our Indian school, like Buddha, Jainis, and Charvak, always question about the Vedas. They refuse and reject strongly Vedas.
Yes.
These are our Indian traditional knowledge.
Yes. Correct.
It's
so that is why I said the traditional person will not say like that. Okay. The Bauddha Sampradaya and the Jaina Sampradaya are little bit
Buddha is a traditional person.
No, Vaidika tradition. I'm talking about the Vaidika tradition. There
we can say
I'm sorry for interrupting in between, but I think it's a time for a short break.
Yes.
Can we have a break?
Yes,
It's great to see your inquisitiveness among the participants about the subject, but let us have a short break and then we'll resume the session at 4:15.
Yeah.
I again request participants to fill in their attendance if they haven't filled it so far, because thereafter the link will be closed. Yes, sir. You may please continue.
No, I am. Madam, you are able to see my face, no?
Yes, sir. Very much, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you so much. So we'll now be meeting sharp at 4:15 to resume with the second session.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.